pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm not going to say a lot because the students are carrying the program tonight. And just want to say thank you to all my friends that I obliged tonight to come here. But I can tell you that what you're going to do is fantastic for the students and the professionals of the future. So I'd like to invite Mr. Brian Thomas.
We're excited to receive the abundance of knowledge and advice that you have to share with us. It is our intention to someday acquire and relate to others with similar professional expertise that will enhance the great society in which we live. Please also know that at any time that you need any of us aspiring professionals to service you, please do not hesitate to ask. And once again, welcome. In order to shorten the program, the short biographies of all the speakers are in the program, so we don't have to repeat them. So please, Lemaris Austin, my friend, it's your turn.
Thank you, Leida. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Lemaris. You guys can call me LA. I am the IT director at the Mobile Chamber of Commerce. I am also the founder of Bounce Back Youth Leadership Foundation, which is directed towards the youth in the community, ages 8 to 18. Been doing this, we've been established since 2008. It's been a real good program, been a challenge, but it's been a real good program. I thank Leida for allowing me to come here tonight to speak to you guys. It's something I love to do. I'm also an adjunct professor at Spring Hill College, so, you know, so forgive me for I will have broken English, so forgive me. I will stutter, so forgive me for that. And I really hope you guys learn something from me tonight. I am a graduate of Alabama State University. I also got my master's in computer information systems. So pretty much for the past 10 years, I've been in the IT industry. I've worked for companies such as ThyssenKrupp, Global Telling. I work for Wind Creek Casino. So I pretty much put my hand in a whole lot of buckets, but it wasn't done without hard work. I really work hard for, you know, where I'm at right now, and I really thank God for the position I'm in right now. I'm the first male in my family to graduate from college. I tell you, it's some big shoes to fill when you're the first person to do something because you have a lot of people looking up to you. So you don't want to mess up. But I hate to say it, I messed up plenty of times, you know, but it's all about going back and correcting your mistakes and things of that nature. So one thing, I'm not afraid to fail. You know, I failing is a part of life, you know, but one thing I cannot accept is not trying. And that's something that Michael Jordan said, you know, I can accept failure, but I cannot accept not trying. So whatever you guys do in life, always try something, you know. If you fail at it, hey, do it again. So, you know, that's definitely a part of life. When I was at Alabama State University, I found myself just pretty much, when I first started out, I was hanging around the wrong group of people, pretty much. And so I'm like, okay, so my second year in college, I'm like, okay, I got to do something different. So I started hanging around a different group of guys. I started hanging around people that wanted to do something in life. And all of a sudden, that changed my whole momentum in life. They wanted to do something, so that made me want to do something. But when I was hanging around the people that didn't want to do anything, I was just like them, not doing anything. But I knew I had to make the change in life, and that's what I did when my second sophomore. So I pledged Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and those guys, everybody on my line made all A's, and I'm the one making all C's. So I'm like, okay, what's really going on? So I really had to put strap my boots on, tie my laces up, and had to get to it. After graduation, I decided that, you know, I want to put 100% in everything that I do. I know pretty much that sounds like a cliche, but honestly, that's what I wanted to do. And everything that I did, I wanted to put 100%, you know. And a lot of people, they like to, you know, blame, you know, things on other people, but that's not how I am, you know. My father, he always told me, he was like, hey, you always got to work harder than the next person. And that's how I want. If it's something that I want to do, I'm gonna do it, you know. My brother, I have a twin brother. He always told me he'll go on an interview or whatnot, and he was like, man, the other guy, you know, he's gonna get it because of the color of his skin. I'm like, man, that's terrible. That's, you know, that's baloney pretty much. Because, you know, if you want that position, you're going to work twice as hard anyway to get that position. And that's how I am. That's my whole momentum in life. If I want it, I'm going to get it. And there's not have been an interview I have not been on that I have not gotten yet. So that goes to show it doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, or whatever. If it's something that you want, you're going to put 100% towards whatever it is to get it. And that's the type of character, that's the type of mentality I have, and I'm always have, and that's kind of I'm going to teach my son and my daughter and everybody else that's in my circle. I'm going to teach them the same thing. Excuse me, I talk fast, so please forgive me. And I told you I was going to stutter, so I'm just letting you know. When it comes to interviewing, for example, one thing you have to know is how to interview. And a lot of people really don't know how to interview. Like some people, it's like you'll think they just mean all the time. They mean mugging all the time, and that's how they go into an interview. They mean mug. Me, I'm the type of person, like some people, they'll go in with dark colors. That's not me. As you can see, I don't wear dark colors at all. This is me all day, every day. I go in and I always have a smile on my face. So when you guys get ready to leave out of college and move on to your career path, know how to interview, guys. The best thing you want to do is learn how to invest in yourself. No matter what you do, invest in yourself, because if it's something that you want to do, you're going to have to take time to do it. You know, you might have to leave some of those friends alone and everything like that, but learn how to invest in yourself. And the way I did that was, if there was a seminar that that's coming in town, and a lot of my friends felt like they didn't want to go to it, guess what? I'm going to be there because it's something that I'm going to learn how to do, you know. And I do learning public speaking class. Yeah, I've taken public speaking classes. I'm still, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, so it's a progress or whatnot. I've taken Dale Carnegie classes. I've taken other classes that came to the that come to Mobile and things like that. But it's all about investing in myself. If my company say, hey, we have this class, you know, we're just trying to find somebody who's interested in doing it, does anybody want to participate? I'm the first person to raise my hand and say, hey, yeah, I'm willing to do it, because that's a part of me investing in myself as well. Let's see. Oh, another thing when it comes to interviewing, dressing. Dressing is very important when it comes to interviewing. If somebody comes to my office right now and say, hey, Mr. Austin, I'm interested in this job or whatnot, and I really want, you know, I want the position, the first thing I'm looking at, honestly, is how that person is dressed. That's very important. You know, you can't come in like, I have some young guys that's in my organization. When we go to church together, these guys are sagging and slacks. I'm like, okay, really, guys? I'm like, some of you guys are seniors in college, and, you know, you're about to get ready to, you know, join adulthood. You know, sometimes you cannot sag. Well, you don't supposed to sag in general because you're a man. I'm like, come on, guys. So learning how to dress, you know, just the matter of, you know, having your belt match your shoes, that's important to me. You know, that's something that I look at. That shows character and everything like that towards me. So, you know, dressing when it comes to interviewing is very important. And also your character is very important as well. You know, smiling, introducing yourself, you know, eye-to-eye contact, that's very important. So, you know, when it comes to interviewing, that's definitely something you guys should want to keep in mind. Let me know if I go over later. I wrote these notes before I came here, so forgive me. I normally don't plan. I'm a terrible planner, but, you know, I kind of go with the flow. One thing about me, another thing is, I'm the type of person, I like to follow my passion. And my passion is photography. You know, IT got me through the door to where I am right now. But right now, the position I am, it forced me the opportunity to also follow my dreams. And photography allows me to do that. It's like an outlet. I think everybody in this room need an outlet. If you don't have an outlet, you need to find out what your outlet is. Whether your outlet is playing sports, whether it's reading, whether it's going to church, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, everybody needs to find an outlet. You cannot, you know, focus on your job 24/7 all the time. That's just not possible, guys. You're going to drive yourself crazy if you don't. So if you don't have an outlet, I suggest you find you one. The thing about my passion is I also get paid for it. So, you know, who don't want to get paid for doing something they love to do? And so, you know, with my photography, hey, I can say, you know, I worked hard on that. I invested time, money, effort, and everything into perfecting what I love to do. So if it's something that you love to do and you can get paid for it, why not go ahead and invest the extra time, the money, or whatever the case is in doing it. But one thing that you definitely would like to do is make a list. Create your list and write down all the things that you want to do in life. Just write down a list. It could be a long-term, it could be a long-term goals, or it could be your short-term goals. But what I did was how I am, excuse me, where I am today, I got there by my list. And once you start checking stuff off your list, you'll find out, like, hey, man, I'm accomplishing something. There's not a greater feeling in knowing that, you accomplished something in life. And so, a lot of people like, okay, he's just talking a bunch of crap. But no, listen, if you write down a list, just put it down and start checking those boxes out, you'll get more motivated. You'll get more enthused about doing stuff in life. And that's how everybody should be, Write that list out. Don't be scared to do it, I'm not talking in vain. I'm telling you the truth. Excuse me. And one thing, a motto that I always live by, and I really hold dear to my heart, in order to get something you never gotten, you got to do something that you never did. And I'm the type of person, I'm going to go out, I'm a go-getter. I'm going to go out and get it, regardless of the situation. Especially if it's a job that I'm making, that I see the qualification is $120,000 a year, guess what? I'm going to try it. If I don't get it, oh well, at least I know I tried to get it or whatnot. But, I'm going to put my all towards it, and in the process, a lot of people, they always say, okay, Lamaris, you do all this. How do you have time for family and other things in life? Manage. You got to know how to manage. If you don't know how to manage, then guess what? You're on your road to failure. You got to learn how to manage all these aspects in your life and things like that. So, and that's how I am. It's all about managing. It was a hard process to do. But eventually, the more and more you do it, the easier and easier it gets. I got a question for you guys. How many of you guys are hungry? I ain't talking about food. I'm talking about hungry for success. That's how I am. When I see something, I get hungry. And I'm going to get full, no matter what the situation is. So if you're hungry, guess what? You're going to go get it. There's nothing like a man who's starving. If you're starving, you're going to do anything you can legally to get whatever you can, to get what you want. And that's how I am. Once you get that hungry mentality, guess what? Man, the sky's the limit. There's no limit. There's no limit. You keep on going. You keep on going. And that's how I am when it came to IT. I wanted my certification. I wanted to get my network certification. Guess what I did? Went to get my CCNA. I wanted to get my master's degree. Guess what I did? I went to get it. Yeah, it's a process. It takes time. But guess what? I followed my list. I just started checking off the classes that I took. I'm like, oh, man, I completed 2 classes. Guess what? I got about 8 more classes to go. That's because I was hungry. I wanted it. When I pledged in my fraternity, I wanted it. No matter, no matter what happened, I wanted it. That's what I wanted. And I always did. When I played football in high school, I wanted to succeed, and that's what I did. I wanted to play basketball. I'm a coach, and I teach my boys the same way. I'm a baseball coach. I teach my boys the same way. And also I teach girls as well. And so I teach everybody the same mentality. If you want it, you're going to do whatever you can to get it, regardless of the situation. One thing about a lot of people, they feel that, my situation, I said it's a rough situation. Yeah, the economy is bad. But I guarantee you, if you were to go to volunteer, I recommend everybody to go and volunteer at a homeless shelter. I guarantee your situation is not bad as the next person. So I try not to use that as an excuse to, because the more excuses you make, the worse the situation is gonna get. Excuses are tools of the incompetent that build bridges that lead to nowhere, and those who use them are masters of nothing and seldom accomplish anything. And that's how I feel about excuses. You seldom accomplish nothing at all when you use them. So, don't let, if you was abused as a child, don't let that be your hindrance. If you were, if you made all F's in high school, don't let that be your hindrance. No matter what it is, if you think, your supervisor is judging you because of the color of your skin, or if you're a male or female, don't let that be your hindrance. You got to keep on striving and doing whatever you got to do to make it. Because believe it or not, there are other people's other people who are looking at you, who is, observing you. And therefore, you got to keep on going, whether it's, your son, your daughter, your niece, nephew, mother, father, whoever. You got people looking up to you. So you don't want nothing to be your hindrance in reference to, whether it's the job that you want or, whatever the situation is.
You have 1 minute.
I got 1 minute? Okay, sorry about that. I told you. Hey, that's my last card note. So I really thank you guys, and I hope you take heed to what I said. I kind of freestyled this later, so I really didn't know what to expect or what to talk about, so I really thank you guys for listening.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
I am Patty Vanderpool, and I got to tell you first, it's so good to be back. I was an adjunct faculty, I hate even to say was. I graduated from the University of South Alabama with my undergraduate and my graduate degree, and I am going to use you for a springboard. You have the hardest job, but you spoke to some very, very good points.
Thank you.
And I had to resign. Now, this is a good problem. I should tell you what I do, right? I owned EAP Lifestyle Management. It's a business that I bought that was an existing business when I had 2 small children to feed. So, was I hungry? Yep. I'm going to tell you something else, and this is really out of order, but something else you said, how do you define success? How do you define success? Like we were talking about before it's, before the program started. I remember, and this is to those of you who I know are thinking this way, when I make X number of dollars, where's my students? Raise your hand if you're a student. Oh yeah, this is like back in the classroom. All right, so if, I used to tell my mother, when I make X number of dollars, I'm going to be so happy. I'm in the field of psychology too, okay, so I should have known better. She said, no, you're not. You're going to reach that amount, and you're going to want more. Guess what happened? The older you get, one of the advantages of putting my career off is, I've only, I'm trying to think, I was a non-traditional graduate student. How much time do we have?
About 9 or 10 minutes.
Oh, no. We're going to have to do this again. I got my, this will explain it in kind of a humorous way. At my first high school reunion, my 10-year reunion, I got a ribbon for the most college. I still didn't have a degree. At my 15-year reunion, I got the same ribbon. I had just gotten my degree. So I was a very long-term student here, and then was very fortunate, got my graduate degree here too, my master's degree. I stopped at my master's because at that time there was no way to get a graduate, to get a doctorate degree in psychology from the University of South Alabama. There is now. But I was unable to do that. At that time, I was still married. All right, now here's the down and dirty, and I'm not going to stay here, but it was Leida, you might not even know this story. I ended up marrying an abusive man. This is not oh poor me, because I'm about not making excuses too. So when I graduated, right before I graduated, I took a car engine on my knees. I was in a very bad car accident, and by the way, told me I'd never walk again. That's right. So I know it's tough. It's tough every day. You know what my response to that, and I am not saying I did this alone, but my response to the doctors was, all right, if I have to stay in this wheelchair, then I'll be okay staying there, but I'm going to die trying to walk. Well, at that point, my husband and I got a divorce, which, no hard feelings, that's just the way life turned. So now I'm a single mother going to graduate school with 2 mouths to feed. Let me tell you, my youngest just got her doctorate in psychology. That was my life. I really dedicated my life, because I was single. I'm married now to a wonderful guy who happens to be sitting back there, who I met when I was 18. That's a whole other story. So I will tell you, keep plugging. God, I know it's hard. How do you do that? I'll put I do training in positive psychology. And basically, LA, I think you are right on the money. It's do what you can do to fix your situation, but if you can't fix it, work on the mind. And who wouldn't hire somebody who says, you want it, I'll get it. Come work for me. I mean, that's exactly what we want. And the colors, let me tell you about that. I would also say to you, be brave. Oh, and to my ball players, my first date was to a Yankees ball game. And most of the baseball, I tell you, my daughter, my oldest daughter, wanted to play baseball with the boys, so she did. I grew up in New York, in City Island, you know, not far from Yankee Stadium, where my husband will tell you my uncles have shrines to the Yankees. Well, when I was teaching psychology in my very early days of teaching, there were some students that were struggling a little bit in psychology. So here's what we did. The baseball team coached my daughter, and I tutored you guys in psychology. They had me shagging balls. I mean, it was phenomenal what you all did, and baseball's my favorite sport. I like basketball too, though, so anyway. Just keep going and have an alternative to baseball. God, I hope it works out for every one of you. I think you have to network, 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 network. Talk about being hungry. I saw that I was going to have to try to find a way to support myself while I was still in school. I had a chance to teach exercise classes at the Y. I had 2 small babies. I was scared to death to talk in public. Why did I do it? Because I had to feed them and I could bring them with me. I didn't have to pay for child care. Why? And the university was a great place to raise them too. I mean, they were guinea pigs in the psychology department for a lot of years. But I mean, what a good environment. I would say network, network, network. Eye contact is important. Now here's the mom in me. I sure didn't like guys coming over, and the same thing as an employer. If you want to talk to me, could you look at me in the face? So there's some dating advice too, okay? At least look the mother in the face. But eye contact, I think, is important. So is dress. I have been very fortunate how I got into the mostly male network, and I agree with you that if you want it, you can get it. I have often said the only people that hold women back are us. For whatever reason, we did it. So, all right, let's move forward. Let's move forward. And where was I going? Oh, the colors. I get an invitation to join one of about 50 small business owners. I get an invitation from Washington, D.C. to join the U.S. Small Business Council with the U.S. Chamber, and I'm a Mobile Chamber, too. We were Business of the Year for Baldwin County Chamber of Commerce. So I get invited to sit on the Small Business Council, and our China, we're operating in several countries, in China also, and I'll try to address that really quickly. But I get a phone call from our Chinese employee who handles our China accounts, and he says, "Patty, you know what an honor it is to be invited. You're one of 3 million small businesses, or however many there are in the United States, to be invited to sit on this council. Guess what?" And this is probably, maybe not always the wise thing to do, but God looks out for us, I believe. I didn't know what the heck the U.S. Chamber Small Business Council did. And I said, sure, I'll go. I'm up for that. Now I'm hoping, I have meetings at the end of the month. I've been on the council for 2 years, and I'm hoping to open an office in Washington, D.C. Oh, yeah. And what it has to do with the color, when I had to do a press conference with the congressman, everybody in D.C. wears black and white and gray. I wore purple. So I showed up during the press conference. Had an opportunity to go to China. Now that would scare a lot of people. It scared me. Here's why it was a little scary. I get on the plane, I don't even know. I meet a guy from China over here. I was kind to him. That's networking and being kind to other people. Out of all of that came an invitation to his country. So I go over there by myself on a plane. I don't speak the language. I have no money because you can't get money for China in Mobile. You have to go to Birmingham. I also don't know where I'm staying till literally I'm thinking they could kidnap me and take me to outer Mongolia for all I know. But I'm going by myself. I have no money. Maybe they'll take a credit card. I don't speak the language. I get there. Bottom line is the business ends up being endorsed by the Chinese national government. And a lot of that came out of respecting their conventions. You know, they said something at a meeting I went to. We hear you, Patty, but we let a man decide. So I'm telling my female students, I could jump up and go, you go, girl. But it's not, that's not their culture. That's not their culture, so I respected that. And as it turns out, one of the ladies I made best friends with, listen to this. Even she didn't speak my language, I didn't speak hers. We have a hard time on the phone, but face to face, we love each other. She turned out to be in charge of HR for the country of China. Now, if I had not gotten on that plane, I'd have never had the opportunity. Never had the opportunity. So, take risks. Use good networking. Don't use excuses. You know, I met the author of Pursuit of Happiness. You familiar with that movie, book? That is a real guy. And you know what he says? Never say if, say when. Good. We got to do this again. This is great.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Both of those were excellent. I took some notes. I didn't write anything ahead of time, so I didn't, honestly. Normally I would. A couple things I want to say. I'm Bill Harkins. Right now I work for the City of Mobile. This is a little bio. I run his City Smart program and a new ombudsman program where we're trying to help the development process get better. And I recognize quite a few folks here now. I look up at the crowd. A couple of things that I'll tag team on from LA and Patricia. One, networking, absolutely. That's how I got my job in the city, through knowing Ms. Cooper's husband, General Cooper.
And who introduced you to them?
My wife got back to Mobile 6 months before I retired from the Marine Corps, ran into Leida. They're two Puerto Ricans. Like, I thought there were two in Mobile until I met a couple of them. So she said, call General Cooper. Maria called me when I was in California. Do you know General Cooper? I said, by reputation. But I'll check in with him when I get back here. I retired as Lieutenant Colonel. Checked in with the General. Within a week or so, he called me up and said, hey, call the Chief of Staff of the city. He does just what a Marine Corps Chief of Staff does. He's got a job for you. I didn't know what he meant, but I called the Chief of Staff, Al Stokes. I went and got the interview. The mayor was standing up this new program that was focusing on trying to improve how the city does things, goal setting, that kind of stuff, brand new. I said I can do it, and I got the job. I've been doing it 6.5 years. So networking is key, and that's what you do have to have a resume. You definitely have to look sharp. You got to know what you're doing. But the way you get your foot in the door is to know people that are there. And I just got through interviewing a bunch of people for one of my analyst positions to work for me. Again, the same tips here. If I'm looking, and what I did when I knew I was going to interview with Chief of Staff and the Mayor, I did some research on the City of Mobile, popped up their website, went down to Government Plaza, looked at people walking in and out, how are they dressing. Now, you don't want to sell yourself out, but this is to protect you as well. If you normally dress like this, and everybody walking in and out is wearing T-shirts and jeans, you will not fit well in that company. So know that before you walk in. If you have to go buy a suit like we did for me, because I used to wear camouflage utilities every day, then I make sure that it's a suit that's going to look like what most people are there wearing. You know, I still don't like having to wear a tie, but I do it. So it's important to network, to be ready for your interview. The young lady who got the job just started today, out of 10 candidates, she walked in showing me a spreadsheet that she had done based off the work we had published on the website that really depicted a fictional department that showed me she knows how to do the job today if I had to work today. So that's why she got the job with everybody else. I would say also be innovative and look at LA right here and look at Patricia. I mean, both of them really out and about, not just settling on one thing. Certainly know what you love to do because you'll do it the best. But don't be afraid to try new things. You know, I mean, when I retired from the Marine Corps as Lieutenant Colonel, I planned on substitute teaching a little bit, maybe teach a little bit here, which I did, draw and paint for the rest of my life. That's not what happened. I saw this really good job and took it. Though I did interview for another job, which my 5th grade daughter at the time loved. I got hired to paint and put together Mardi Gras floats. And when I came back from that interview, I got the job. My daughter was thrilled. About a week later, I told her, hey, I've been working for the mayor. And wearing a coat and tie, she was most unhappy because she told all her friends about the Mardi Gras job. But along those lines, make sure you keep your education going. I'm preaching to the choir here. You know, LA talked about going to school, Patricia going to school. You saw a little bio. I went to school here. You see, I got a BS. My BS was in Recreation Resource Development. I don't really publish that very much. But all the Marine Corps needed to be a second lieutenant was any degree. While I was in the Marine Corps, I got a master's in public administration, which, though I got the foot in the door of the general, the chief of staff hired me because I had that master's in public administration. He was a little bit leery about this retired Marine running a program for him in the city of Mobile. And in fact, wanted to make sure I was not going to wear a drill instructor hat the whole time. And what I told him was, I have a tool bag of leadership skills, and I can put a drill instructor hat on any day, any minute I have to, but I can also put on a velvet glove and stroke somebody to get what needs to get done. I learned that over 22 years in the Marine Corps. So, and I proved it. It took a couple of years to prove it to him, but I did. Staying hungry. One of the things I used to teach my Marines was don't be complacent, which is the same thing. Don't just settle for mediocrity. Push, innovative, right? Because it'll get you in trouble. As soon as you settle in, you're in trouble. To be honest, our job at City Smart, and even this ombudsman thing, is trying to shake up some of this complacency, because a lot of bureaucrats get settled into just doing the ordinary thing. Be flexible. Yes, focus on what you're doing, what you want to be doing, but brush up on other things you have interest in too. Because who knows what the job market's going to be like. Either for bad for you, you may be told, hey, I can't keep you around anymore, or good for you that you got a skill for Airbus and you can hop in and get your salary done. So kind of be looking around. There's all kind of opportunities, sure, for formal education like you guys are doing now, but volunteer things, I'm talking about Habitat for Humanity, putting a hammer to a nail, I mean, all kind of opportunities out there, so stay flexible on that. But probably what would kind of set me off a little bit compared to other folks here would be my Marine Corps background. And some things I learned hard and heavy there was the first thing is mission accomplishment. When your boss says they want something done, make sure you understand what that is and what your resources are, whether it's people or equipment or whatever, and then focus on mission accomplishment. And if you don't have the tools to get it done, go back to your boss and say, hey boss, I can't do this with this limited number of people or limited resources, and then go back to work. If he says that's all you got, that's all you got. I've also learned the hard way, an old saying back in my days was, if the boss wants it bad, sometimes he gets it bad. Yeah. If he gives you one day to come up with a very intricate solution, your mission is to get him something in one day, right? You do the best you can, but you realize if you have a whole week to plan it, you can probably give him something better, okay? But you got to accomplish the mission. Along those lines, that's a really important piece of information. Ask the boss clearly, how long do I have to do this? If she gives you 2 days, take a day just to plan, and then start implementing things. If you get a week, spend like 3 or 4 days to plan. Don't knee-jerk a solution in one day if you got a week to play with it, because you'll always have something better if you get a little breathing room, a little time to sleep on it. Another thing I'll advise everybody is get as many people involved in that solution as you can tolerate. That's going to make it painful when you get folks together from different backgrounds, but you'll get a better solution in the end. And if you're the leader, be strong enough to tell people, I will make the decision, but I want some advice. And that means you may hurt my feelings. That's how it's going to be. I learned that from some good gunnery sergeants way back when. It hurt my feelings all the time as I was in charge. And I tell them, thank you. We usually do what I said, and often they were right. But kind of learned the hard way. Take care of your people. That's old, right? Take care of your people because they will take care of you. No matter whether you got just one person working for you or hundreds or thousands. But that's critical. Something I ended up doing a lot, which I never thought I would do, is personality management. Whether it was when I was a PFC at the reserve unit down here, to a lieutenant colonel in Afghanistan with a bunch of National Guard and soldiers and stuff. You think that we're going to be doing things for real in a combat zone, but really I was often just getting people that were really nice to work with people that were really mean, and vice versa from up and down the chain of command, different cultures. So you have to learn to read people well and honestly, and not manipulate them, but get them to use their strengths and break people apart, not be afraid to step in there and break them apart. It's really important. But you'll have to use that personality management skill all the time. I think this was mentioned already before too. If you have a problem, if you have an issue for your boss, have a solution. Even if it's a crazy solution, don't just come in and go, gosh, it's hot, without some kind of solution. If it's hot, say, boss, if we get a tent over the top of us, it won't be so hot we can work better, or whatever. But don't just come to me and say, you know, life sucks. Come to me and tell me what's bad about it and what can be done about it. Preferably a workable solution, all right? And that goes back to taking care of your people, because if you come up with that, your boss should recognize you for that. I mean, I'm talking to people a lot about the personnel board system in the city of Mobile, and how hard it is for anybody to get any kind of recognition for doing a great job. And, you know, back in my previous life, we do crazy things with little pieces of ribbon. But it doesn't quite work that way here. And the last thing I'll agree with Patricia as well is no excuses. If you don't get something done, don't sit there and whine and come up with all kinds of excuses. The best thing to do, and you learned this when you were growing up with your parents, admit you did wrong, take the heat and get back to work. Okay? That's the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Good evening. First of all, thank you.
Thank you.
I too typically shy away from public speaking, but I welcome the opportunity, and hopefully I can share something with you that you can take with you. I also want to say I'm very impressed with this facility and just being at South. You know, being a native, I was indoctrinated at Alabama for my tour degree. I went to school there 8 years, 5 years of undergrad, 3 years of law school, and but being a native of Mobile and being actually a neighbor of the university right now, I'm really impressed with what's going on over here. I'm excited about what's going on in the South. So I'm looking forward to seeing the growth continue. I'm a native of Mobile. Went to UMS. And a lot of the things that you guys have already heard, I'll try not to repeat. I'll try to be more anecdotal because, I mean, I will be echoing a lot of the things that they've already shared. I went to UMS when it was an all-boys school. It's UMS Rights now, dating myself. It's been there since 1893, and I think I was the third African-American to graduate from the school, quite frankly. So it was not my idea to go there. It was not my idea. My mother had a dream for me to attend that school. And obviously mother knows best because it has paid off for me in ways I would not have anticipated. When we talk about networking, she absolutely right. It's not, you often hear about who you know will get you there, what you know will keep you there, and knowing yourself and who you are will sustain you. And it's very important that you, at this stage in your lives, begin to appreciate what you want, and who you are, and what your abilities are, and not be afraid to fail. I often talk about, and I think I shared this with my leadership class, speaking of networking, the first thing that I realized first time I recognized the importance of networking, it wasn't going and playing football at the University of Alabama. It was really applying for law school. And again, you'll learn as much from what I did wrong as what I did right. I didn't apply myself the way I should have. I took things for granted. I did well in school when I applied myself. I did well in sports when I applied myself and I was hungry. But when I went to the University of Alabama, there was so much competition. And when you get to a certain level, it's not just about talent. It's about work ethic, it's about talent, and it's about hunger. And there's going to be politics that I'm saying these things because these are things, the very things you're probably dealing with right now as athletes. I'm talking to the athletes in a unique way, I guess. The very thing that you're dealing with right now will translate when you go into the working world. It's going to be the same as you got to deal with people. You're going to learn, you're a special group of folks because you know how to deal with people who come from different backgrounds, who you have nothing in common with but a common goal. And you understand, you can take instruction, learn, work together, move forward, and win. That's corporate America. That's business. That's what people are looking for. Now, when it came time to go to law school, because I had not applied myself very much, I didn't think I'd get in. So I took the LSAT. I did pretty well. And I was excited to get into Cumberland Law School now. Cumberland's a very good school, so I was very happy to get in. But there was a judge named Farrell McRae. He was a big Bama fan. And I called Judge McRae, and I said, Judge, I got into law school. I'm so excited. Oh my God. You know, He said, oh, hell. I said, I got the compliment. He goes, oh, hell, let me call you right back. Dean Gamble of the law school calls me and says, Alvin, welcome to the University of Alabama Law School. You're in with a scholarship. Light bulb. Networking. Access. There are two lines. There are people who buy tickets, and there are people who know to get out the door. And you'll deal with both. So when I talk about public speaking and being prepared, my first day in court, I was not anticipating going to court. I was going to lunch. I was going to lunch. Buzz Jordan said, Alvin, walk down with me to the courthouse. And I said, sure. And right outside the courthouse, he says to me, I want you to handle this arraignment. I had never heard of an arraignment. You know, that's my mouth gets dry. I'm like, whoa, what are you talking about? What are you doing? And then he adds insult to injury. He says, you're going to go before Judge McRae, the very guy that put you in law school. So I get in there, and he says, just watch what the other lawyers do. And lo and behold, I'm the second one to go, right? So arraignment is when the person pleads guilty or innocent. I know this now. And I'm introduced to my client at that instance. So, you know, power of the subconscious, they bring to me a guy in chains, in orange, who you know, looked like he fit the bill of being, I won't ruin the punchline. But the judge leans over and says to me, well, Alvin, how does your client plead? And I said, Your Honor, the criminal is innocent. I don't tell that story to suggest that I'm an idiot. I can imitate one pretty well. I tell that story to suggest that, first of all, not just about networking, but you're going to make mistakes. And you can't be afraid to fail. I agree completely. I read on here about career paths and advice, and career path makes it really interesting because mine was more of a journey. Because I messed up in the beginning in my mind, I had applied myself. What I had done was assembled this, not just a network, but some skill sets. The one thing that I would say that probably saved me is persistence. Something in me, instilled in me, and I'll credit this obviously to my parents and the environment that they provided for me, which was to always surround yourself with like-minded people who were going somewhere you thought you wanted to go. It was never a doubt that I was going to college. Not because I thought about going to college. That was just the next step. It was 13th grade. You know, you just knew that's what you were going to do. Now, what I was going to do in college, I had no idea. This was the example for me of seeking out examples. I didn't know a lot of lawyers. I didn't know many doctors. So I went to my guidance counselor and asked, who makes good money? And she goes, well, you know, what do you like to do? I said, well, I like to draw. She said, well, what about architecture design or engineering? And so I found myself in engineering. Then I'm sorry, I ignored her advice. I went to marketing. Looking outside the window one day, beautiful day, it was a microeconomics class. I didn't like the class. I decided to try engineering. After 3 years of engineering, electrical and industrial, I ended up with math and history. Now, during this time, I'm playing football. And I'm jumping around with these anecdotes. The football coach says to me, he pulls 3 guys over, myself, Sam Shade, George T. Those 2 guys are first-round draft picks in the NFL. He says, you guys want to be engineers or football players? And I was the idiot that said I could do both. And I was not aware that my time began to dwindle on the football field. They said nothing. They switched their majors. Ultimately, I did too. But I don't have any regrets for speaking up and saying that. But it wasn't until we lost a game 56-6 that I realized, and everybody on the team played but me, that I realized I need to think about focusing on my education. And that's what I did. About 3 years in the school, I began to focus on my grades. And I afforded myself the opportunity to go to law school. And because I did that, I ended up going to a law firm, Huntley Jordan. Wasn't the experience that I wanted, because what I wanted to do is marry my passion for sports with my education, which was law. So I wanted to represent teams. I wanted to do labor law. Well, I found myself representing, I was in labor law, but I was representing nursing homes. And my office was in a nursing home. I should have known that interview was, that job was going to be interesting when the guy I interviewed with, again, a network, a colleague, a contact who happened to be from Montgomery, showed up to the interview and says, "Man, I'm sorry I'm late, but I forgot about that prostate exam I was supposed to get." So, that was the first signal. So anyway, I did that job for 2 years, and then I went in-house with a national healthcare company, and then I went to a law firm in Macon, Georgia, where I lived out of my suitcase and traveled all over the country, negotiating labor contracts. But I wasn't where I wanted to be, and I didn't have a passion for what I was doing, because the passion was, again, very important. And I left a lot of money on the table, and I decided I wasn't going to practice law anymore. And I moved to, I went and clerked for a federal judge who said, "Alvin, you don't have a passion for what you're doing. You need to rethink it." And again, just following the journey, as my former boss would say, "Alvin, you have neither chick nor child. You need to work from can to cane." Because I had neither chick nor child, I took off to New Orleans and started a business with a buddy of mine. Very spontaneous. Well, right place, right time, but no structure. We ended up inheriting 20 employees and a 7-figure contract, but no plan, no organization. So it lasted for 2 years. Katrina happens. Government contract. If you know anything about New Orleans, it's a different place. And post-Katrina is not a place you wanted to be in government contracting if you weren't from New Orleans. But my ambition was always to come back to Mobile. But in the interim, I met a young lady. And there's nothing like debt and family to focus. So I began to see things very, very clearly. And all those things that my parents had instilled in me and shared with me began to come back to me. So I moved back to Alabama. Went to school one more time, got an MBA, went to the University of Emory, or Emory University, got an MBA, and had planned never to practice law again. But I went, came back to Mobile with my family, wanted to be a part of what's going on here in Mobile, and participated in Leadership Mobile. And one day, one of our classmates in Leadership Mobile overheard me talking about what I'd like to do. And there was a firm that was, unbeknownst to me, looking for someone with my background. And it's a pretty good firm. And I backdoored into an opportunity that I've always had an interest in, which is public finance. And that's what I do now. Public finance is multidisciplinary.
Wow.
And so it's interesting that I'm here today talking about interdisciplinary issues, but I hope I've shared, I've rambled, but I hope I've shared something that I can tell by extending the time. I share something with you from all those interesting stories.
Everybody said such great things. My career, I came to this career very convoluted method. I thought I was going to go to Auburn. I was the oldest of 6 children. Just before I go off to school, my parents say, "Well, how are you paying for this?" And I went, "Whoops." So I was smart enough to enroll here at the University of South Alabama with the 3 buildings they had here at the time, and but I didn't quite finish at that point in time. Back then I was having to work full-time and go to school full-time, and those 8 o'clock British literature classes in the morning just did not make it for me. So I dropped out full-time because I was making more than minimum wage, and so over the years I continued to take classes. Well, working for a small business, you're going to learn to do a lot of everything. You might be the bookkeeper, you might be the person hiring people, whatever it is you're doing is generally in a small business, you're going to be doing a lot of different things. Well, And doing that, I began handling the personnel issues, which is now called human resources. Because I know everybody, when you're in the 4th grade, you either want to be a fireman, a doctor, or a human resource person, right? Is that the first thing everybody thinks about in the 4th grade? Because you don't even know what human resources is, do you? But basically, it's the hiring and the firing and the benefits and the payroll and all that good stuff. So I was doing all that for this small company. We had grown into over 100 employees, but I realized I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's when I left off the ledge, and I thought my husband would divorce me because I quit my job and came back to South full time. So I did get my degree in human resources, and I've still come through a convoluted path. We've talked a lot about networking. We haven't really talked maybe about how you network, but if you don't volunteer, you can't network. And I volunteered for things and volunteered for things, and that's what I said Leida, and now she volunteers me for things. It's much easier that way. But my networking has come through athletics. I'm serious. I have met the nicest people. Now that we've started the football program, we're trying to get everybody interested in all the athletics. I'm the co-director of the JAG Gals group, and our ultimate mission is to raise money for student tutoring for our athletes and to give you cookies before your exams so you have a sugar buzz and you will do well and you can still play the next time you have to be out on the field. I have met wonderful people. I've met high-ranking people, I guess you'd call it in Mobile. But those are the ways that I have networked and gotten to where I am right now. I am very blessed, and don't anybody go back and tell my boss this, but right now I have the best job in the whole world. I love it. If you tell them you love it, at infirmary they're probably going to find me something to do that's not as much fun. But, I was responsible for recruiting, and through recruiting I started doing workforce development, which means recruiting is where you're looking for current people to come to work for you. My workforce development piece is to make sure we have a pipeline of people coming along as well. So I have to go out and get students interested in healthcare and sciences and whatever. And as USA will say, I don't care really where you go to work, just go to work so I don't have to give you free health care. That's pretty much. So we try to encourage the students to stay in school, and they're going to need their math, they're going to need their science. Well, in doing all that workforce development stuff, that's how I met Leida. And from Leida, then we got into Saudi Sea, and we got into Worlds of Opportunity. And once again, I've met a lot of people. Well, apparently I was having so much fun doing it, they said, here, we don't want you doing recruiting anymore, we just want you to do workforce development. Well, right at the time, it upset me a little bit, but now it's like, okay, all right, I just do workforce development. So this is pretty much what I do all day. I go out, I talk to students, I do career fairs, we work on a lot of events. But again, that's the passion that you talked about. I think the chamber needs to give me an office down there because I know everybody now at the chamber because I'm down there usually more than we miss Leida. But I'm down there more than in my office most of the time. But I get to go out and talk to people. I am not like the last two people you've heard here that said they didn't like public speaking. I just love to speak publicly. So determination, but volunteer. You mentioned Habitat for Humanity. Wherever you volunteer, that's where you're going to get your networking. And my husband and I will be married 29 years. We've been together over 30 years. And he finally has realized that networking does work for you. Because he's never done, he's kind of shy until he gets a little scotch in him. And so, it's really kind of hard to go about your daily duties drinking scotch, So he's not a really good networker because he's a little shy. But I am not shy. I've never met a stranger. But that is how I've met great people like Leida and all the people that said, I know you, I've seen you before. But that's how you're going to do it. And I know right now you don't have time, especially if you're in sports. And I know Coach Jones will ask if you got here on time, but that's okay. I won't tell. But it was his fault, wasn't it? And that's what I thought. Yes, I love Kelly. But you don't think you have time now, but as soon as you start work, three things you need to remember. You need to go every day, be there on time. That is the biggest problem we have in infirmary healthcare is attendance. It's like, oh, you're supposed to go to work every day? Y'all are going to, you're probably I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. It's like, well, what's the big deal? Well, you have this job description. You can't do your job if you're not there. But they get there late or they don't come at all. And in healthcare, that's a huge problem because if a nurse has already worked 12 hours and her replacement does not show up, that is not good for our patients. So go to work, be there. Volunteer. Volunteer for things within the system or within the company. Just like y'all said, if they said, I need somebody to go out and, ask all of our employees, what kind of volunteer work they do. I go, I'll do it. because I'm that stupid, first of all, but at the same time, the more you do, the more you get recognized. You may not get a lot of money for it right then, but eventually down the road, they're going to know you're going to be the go-to person. And I'm going to save us some time, because I'm going to say the other thing that I have learned, and it's taken me 58 years to learn that, is to think before you speak. Leida and I are really good at not thinking before we send. I'm going to give her credit for thinking, but sometimes we send those emails or whatever. So I've learned in the last year, think about what you're saying before you say it. You cannot take it back. I know you've heard those things before, but you truly, once it's out, or once you hit that send button and it went to the wrong person, have you ever done that? Has anybody ever sent a heart? Yeah. Yeah. Once you do that, you can't get it back. So just think before you speak. But again, does anybody, y'all, I know the sports people, we can't even talk to y'all, but who are the non-traditional students around here? You can do this. I got my degree at 40. When I finally went back and my husband was writing the divorce papers, because I said, I quit my job today, I'm going back full-time to South. I've always wanted to do this. I'm so excited. He's just, really? What about groceries? But it was something I wanted to do. It was something I had to do. And so I was determined to get it done. It just took me a longer time, but I was trying to make that decision, and my brother at that time was working at another state, and on that old green bar, for you that are young people, green bar is this thing they used to put on these big computers, but it was an old green bar, and he typed me the first email I'd ever gotten, and he said, here's what I'm going to tell you. He said, you can either go back to school and get your degree and have your degree by the time you're 40, or you can just be 40. So in your mind, if you keep thinking about that, what do you want to do? You can either do it and have that cred or that certificate or certification or whatever, or you can just be 40. And for those of you who are over 40, I'm sorry, you can just be 50 or 60. But that's all I can tell you. It's persistence and just, finally kicking yourself in the butt enough to go back and do what you want to do. But y'all are all probably getting ready to graduate, right? No excitement there. Yes, okay, yay. That's good. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I remember that last day in my class at the business building, I walked out to my car, I opened my trunk, I threw those books in the back, and I slammed it, and I said, I'm getting a tattoo and going to Disney World.
I'm Beth Anderson, and I'm a hospital administrator for the University of South Alabama Medical Center. The university does have a health system. It has 2 hospitals and a Mitchell Cancer Institute. And my road to this position came via a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing. And I almost didn't get there. So let me just tell you a little bit about my educational story, because education and your skill set tools and also mentoring. I want to talk a little bit about mentoring. But let's start about education. I had a lot of trouble in school. It was very difficult for me. It took me a long time to learn things. I was labeled a slow learner. So lesson number 1, don't let labels define you, okay? I had to work hard in college, and my SAT scores to get into college were really terrible. I had like a 3.7 grade point average. I applied to 10 universities. How many do you think I got into?
3.
1. You're absolutely correct. It was my last choice. So I started out going to a school that was my last choice. But again, I had good mentoring from my parents who said, you're going to make the best of this. You've gotten into school. That was your goal. And now you need to go on and decide what you want to do. So I decided I was going to get into nursing school. I worked hard. And the biggest lesson is asking for help is not a sign of weakness. So I went to my college professors. I got help. I got tutoring. And guess what? I got into 4 nursing schools, all of my choice. And one of those 4 was an original university that turned me down the first time. So I had to prove to them that I could work and do the academic work. Now, when I graduated from nursing school, it was tough for me. My GPA was a little bit under a 3.0. So when I went to graduate school, guess what? I had to start out on academic probation. Not only that, I was 10 years since I finished my undergraduate degree, so I had to take some prerequisite course because it had been too long since I got my undergraduate degree, and I think they also wanted to make sure I could do the work. Well, guess what? I graduated with a 4.0. So what was the difference? The difference was a little bit of maturity. I had a lot of difficulty taking standardized testing. Does anybody have trouble with that? Yes. Every time I did that, it was in the tank. When I took my licensure exam, I passed one section by 3 points, but I passed. And that was with a lot of help, and before you could really take courses in how to take standardized testing. So Don't give up. Keep trying. So how did I get to be a hospital administrator? Well, I started out, and my clinical love was oncology. I like to take care of cancer patients. So I started there, and every job I went, I tried to pick up another skill set. And every time I changed a job, I would pick up another skill set. And my master's degree is in nursing and health administration. So I had a background, I had some finance courses, but there are several things that my education didn't prepare me for to run a hospital. Number one is communication skills. I cannot stress to you enough, verbal and written skills. You need to hone in on that. As Carol talked about, email, how you construct your emails, what you say, what you don't say is very important. And I need to tell you, this can be your best friend and your worst enemy. Social media, it's coming. It's something that hospitals now are paying people to monitor and watch for them. And let me tell you, they're watching what you do out on your social media. When you go to apply for jobs, if you don't think your employer is going to take a look to see if you have a Facebook page and what's on there, and they have ability to do that, they're going to do that. And then you may actually get turned down for a job based on what you have on your social networking page. I encourage you to be careful about what you put out there, because people are watching. Okay? I think the other thing that I needed to learn was finance. I wish I had taken a basic accounting course, because accounting and finance is the basis for everything. No matter what you do, healthcare, business, or if you want to open your own business, or if you want to do anything in retail, understanding how that business works financially, how it makes its money, how it makes its profit is very important. And those courses also help you in your own personal finance and give you a methodology to which you can grow and develop in that area. I think last but not least, it's important to have mentors. I was very fortunate to have 4 mentors that were very strong, but you've got to want to be mentored. They're not going to come to you and say, hey, can I help you? Now, Alvin talked a little bit about he had networking and some people that would help him. But most time, mentors will see things in you that you don't see in yourself. I wouldn't be running a hospital if I hadn't had a mentor that saw things in me that I didn't see. But I didn't go seek that out. We mutually came together and then pushed me in a direction. I'm basically a shy person. I'm not a risk taker. And he pushed me to go take risks. I think, Patty, you talked about getting on that plane to China. Well, for me, it was going to Washington, D.C. and being in Senator Shelby's office with the head of Medicare, which is a huge thing for a healthcare person. And that was very intimidating. I've also sat down with the Department of Public Health and written legislature for trauma system that we currently have. Those are all neat things that I've had the ability to do because I honed in on my skill set. So very important. I think the other thing, too, that's really important is trying to get that work-family balance. How do you do that? I know, AJ, you talked about that. LA, sorry, not AJ, sorry. You talked about that, and it can be done. It's challenging. But I, like Patty, raised a child by myself for a period of time, and that child had some of the same learning difficulties that I did, and I mirrored what my parents did. And he now is graduated from veterinary school, cum laude, a year ago. So perseverance, again, networking. Carol talked about human resources. That's extremely important, that you understand how to work as a team, that you understand how to work as a group, that you take into account what other people, what their agenda is, what their goals are, because that's very important to know. And I will just close. Healthcare is drastically changing. The Affordable Care Act, or commonly called as Obamacare, is going to drastically change the way we look. 1 in 6 hospitals are going to probably close in the United States in the next 5 to 6 years. Healthcare is going to shift more to an outpatient setting. So what skills are you going to need if you're interested in doing in healthcare? Almost everything we've talked about. And you can enter into my job, a hospital administrator, from a clinical base, from a finance base, or from a base of hospital administration and master's degree. So there's several different ways. The CEO at Trinity Hospital in Birmingham, Alabama is actually a rad tech. The CEO of our health system is a basic education as a pharmacist and has a master's degree in public administration. So there's wide opening if you're interested in healthcare and all different ways of entry that you can get in there. You just got to persevere, as everybody says, networking, knowing what your strengths are. Don't let people label you. and follow your dream.
I'm Stephanie Knight. I'm currently the president and CEO of the Better Business Bureau. And a lot of you may or may not know what the Better Business Bureau does, but we manage complaints. We also regulate and manage businesses. We are what we call the equitable voice between the consumer and the business. And I'm just going to follow up with a lot of things that have been said here. I really came to this position in a very non-traditional fashion. My time in Mobile has been completely non-traditional, starting from the people I've met and some of the positions and a lot of volunteering that I've done in the community. I'm originally from Southern California. I married a Mobilian, and he brought me here after 20 years of being in Southern California, which was an interesting adjustment. My husband and my son are both here. We're the Knights. We are a pack, and we do things together, and we share a lot of experiences together. And support system is something that's very important as you move forward in your career. You want to look who you align yourself with. You want to look who your friends are. You want to look at your professional networks, your contacts, because that's a reflection of you. Everybody you keep in your circle in some way speaks about you, so that's very important. At the Bureau, again, this position came by virtue of a volunteer position or project that I did in the community. One of my board members that's currently at the Better Business Bureau, I did a Senior Fest project for her, some design work, some business development, some fundraising to get some funds for an event, and she remembered me from that, and that's how I landed in this position. But I do want to talk, I'm in the process of doing a lot of, well, not a lot of, but I've turned over a complete staff at the Better Business Bureau for a lot of reasons, and I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but basically I've kind of carved out a niche for myself, and Ms. Cooper will kind of attest to this for me, of reinventing and retooling organizations, coming in and looking at things that are working and most of the time really not working. And it's a skill that I developed through a series of positions that I held, and that I really didn't start out wanting to be this kind of person in life, but this is kind of my career path as it's evolved. I started out wanting to be an architect in school. I loved design, and I thought that it was a great position, and it had a lot of notoriety to it, and I thought I would be good at it. But by the time I got to pre-calculus, I realized I really didn't want to do this. And geometry was no fun thing either. So I started to really look at colleges that could really fuel some of the communication that I like to do, the talking, the presenting, the working with people. And I went to Northwestern as a journalism major. I started out in a journalism program. It's not a good football school. My husband reminds me of that all the time. But it's a good place to get a good foundation in education. So I started out as a journalism major, but I started to volunteer a lot on campus. I started to get involved in student government. I started to host different events on campus. And I really, really started to fall in love with that area of just kind of events and government and policy and making things better for other people's students. And we had a big issue before us at Northwestern, which was trying to get our African American professors the tenure that they deserved. So I was very involved in that. And my parents were nervous because they thought I was going to get kicked out, and it was very controversial. And we brought Stokely Carmichael to speak, and it was just all very, political and scary. Yeah, right. Go power. Yeah. And so, it was something that I did, and that's something else I want to talk about is taking risks. I've taken a lot of risks in the things that I've done, and I've just kind of thrown myself into things that would help me grow and develop, and try to develop people around me that would help bring that forth in me as well as shore me up when I made those choices. So that's important. So Northwestern, started out journalism, moved into a lot of event work as well as student government on campus, and I graduated with a degree in organizational studies and sociology. Well, sociology with a concentration in organizational studies. I left school and I worked for a nonprofit, a nonprofit group homes. I ran group homes, which are residential treatment facilities for young people that are abused or neglected, and that was some tough stuff, let me tell you. I met my husband doing that work. I worked 10 days on, and I had 3 days off. I lived in the facilities with the kids. They don't do that anymore. They let you out, but you want to test a guy that you're dating. tell him you work 10 days on, you can't leave the facility, you can't come see me, and I get to see you 6 days out of the month. And he hung in there, and we've been married 23 years, so obviously there was something to hang on to. But that was a very tough position. Again, I dealt with adolescents going through some very tough things. They would be removed from their family and placed in residential treatment, and I was what they called their house mother. So I was 22. I was probably 3 to 4 years, in some cases maybe 5, older than the kids that I was working for. And my job was to get them to what they call emancipation, which was to get out of that home, to find a job, to get some life skills, and to make something of their lives. So it was very, very difficult work. My kids, as I said, had a lot of behavioral problems. But one thing that I'll tell you about healthcare, and you've heard a common thread about healthcare, is it'll teach you a lot of good crisis management, interpersonal skills. You become a behavioralist because you can look in the room and look at people and kind of see where they are in the world, see what they're showing you, and you can kind of mirror back what they're doing. So healthcare is a good training ground. I would never tell you how much I use some of those skills today, but I use them all the time. So from there, I really I decided that I wanted to get deeper into social work. I mean, working with my house was level 12, which meant I had kids that were basically one step away from incarceration. Some really, really tough behavior. So I switched. I had some personal challenges, and I switched populations, and I started working with seniors. Actually, my dad had a aortic rupture, and we had a wonderful, wonderful case manager that dealt with seniors in crisis management. So again, back to volunteering and just trying to find non-traditional opportunities right where we are. We had a case manager, and I remember to this day, her name was Nancy Casey, and what she did, and my father was a corporate executive, is she would actually coordinate all the health care and treatment plan and crisis intervention for the family after like a critical episode, which is exactly where we were. And I'm like, well, I didn't even know people got paid to do that. And she did. So she came in and she helped our family and coordinated those services, and I would sit with her and I would talk to her about how she got into this and what led to it. She came to it from a nursing background. Long story short, I ended up moving into case management at a subacute unit and doing all the contracting for a managed care company on site. So that was another experience that fell in my life, but really led me to another job that was not something I was seeking. But what I would share is there's common threads in all those positions that I took. A lot of interpersonal skills, a lot of crisis management, a lot of working with people, a lot of identifying problems and then presenting solutions. So those have been kind of common threads throughout my work life. So I did case management for a while. Healthcare in the 90s was very tumultuous. There were a lot of companies buying and selling each other. It was kind of like IT. It was funny, my husband was going through the same thing in IT that I was going through in healthcare. And we decided, another challenge, the Knights are up for it, we're going to start our own business, okay? We know how to sell, we know how to write contracts, we know how to get clients, we've had a lot of skills surrounding that. So we started Innovative Data Solutions. And it was an IT firm that I did all the marketing and business development for, and Michael did all the IT work for it. He has a background in IT. But again, you really want to test yourself, you want to challenge yourself, start selling a service, not a product, a service, because really what it boils down to is people's belief in you, your credibility, your presentation, a lot of your outward appearance and your skill set to get people to say, hey, I like this, I hear what you're saying, and then get them to pay for it, and then get them to pay for it monthly and to continue using your services. So basically that's what we did for 5.5 years or around there before we came to Mobile. Michael was recruited by Roberts Brothers to come to Mobile, and although we had vacationed, we hadn't actually lived in Mobile. So we moved to Mobile, and we, again, was a chance to kind of look at where we were professionally and pick up some additional skills in a new environment, and I started volunteering. I met Leida very early, I met Beverly Cooper very early, and some of the other individuals, Patty Vanderpool, I actually met when I was at a job seminar training that lady you hosted. I don't know if you remember that, but Patty was there and she was talking about laugh therapy and positive attitude, your outlook, basically just radiating good energy and always keeping yourself upbeat, and that kind of energy in exchange will bring good opportunities into your life. And I don't know if you remember all that laugh therapy, but you talked about that, and I always remembered that. So again, I started really just looking at what I could do with the skills that I had, and I developed a program of business coaching because as I came to Mobile, I saw a lot of family-owned businesses and small businesses that really, really had some weak areas. You know, they either grew up as family businesses and they hadn't kept in place with what the marketplace demanded right now. They weren't advertising or utilizing social media. They didn't have good materials or collateral or pamphlets or flyers. They weren't networking. They weren't growing. So I just started to seek out opportunities where I could do business coaching and development within the community. And that landed me in a lot of different areas of business within the community, some work with the chamber, some nonprofit work as well. So that's kind of how you can take one skill set and one opportunity and kind of craft it and move it. One thing I always do, I'm very persistent. I utilize the people in my network. I ask a lot of questions. I problem solve through things. I'm very detail oriented. I try to bring character and ethics to everything I do. And one thing in hiring at the Better Business Bureau right now is I'm really struggling with young people because I need them for social media and marketing and to grow the agency and make it relevant to people that are under 40. But a lot of times I don't see that character that I need. I don't see that trust. I don't see that loyalty. I don't see that commitment. Again, just to follow up with what the other speaker before me said, you have to come to work on time. You have to come to work every day. I mean, it's not negotiable, I guess, and that's something when I'm in the hiring chair that I can't believe I hear, that people don't have that dedication and commitment. Sometimes it's long hours, sometimes it's weekends, sometimes it's outside projects, sometimes it's, you know, research on your own. And I encourage people that work with me to do that, but you have to do that. You have to allow that to be part of who you are and all of the work that you do. You have to bring that integrity and character above all. Just remember, your education is just the beginning. It's just the springboard. The experiences that you create for yourself, the people that you touch, and the opportunities that you take advantage of are really going to shape your career. And listen to that internal voice. Sometimes people start out, as the other speaker before me, he's had a lot of different career paths. He's had a lot of opportunities, law, and now he's in finance and business development. But listen to that voice that lives inside of you, because the things that were consistent for me were problem solving, reinvention, helping people create a new image or a new brand, networking, and sales. And I've used all those skills throughout all the different professions that I've had. So a lot of times you need to just sit down and talk to yourself or listen to yourself and see what keeps coming to you professionally and personally. And with your education, that'll really put you in the place that you want to be professionally. So I encourage you to do that.
Thank you. Stephanie is probably one of my favorite people when I got to know her professionally. Because listening to her, see how controlled she was, how well she spoke, very organized in the way she presented her material. I mean, everything about her. And this was when the first time you meet her, and she's talking to you about what she wants to do, you believe her. This is, you know, she didn't have to bring me a widget to sell. The fact that she bought her services and as she talked through what was important about it, I'm like Leida. It was like, okay, a Mack truck just ran over me in my office too. My desire was to try to figure out how can I help her, because I really thought about how important it was for Mobile to be able to have the Knight family here. I've met a lot of people since I've been here, the 22 years that I've lived in Mobile. But I've seen lots of very young, talented individuals who decide that they can't quite get what they want here, so they leave. And my interest was meeting someone like a Stephanie Knight and also meeting Michael, and then meeting, I call him my grandson, but meeting them, I knew how important it was to make sure that they stayed in Mobile. And we got involved in a few things, but she has done so well with respect to how she's maneuvered and gotten an opportunity to meet individuals, talk to them about what's important, presented her skill sets, and really creating that professional image and I think career for herself. And that's a perfect role model when you think about what you just saw. Were you impressed with the individual who just presented to you?
Yes.
You couldn't help but be impressed. I think when you look at her, and then think of Beth Anderson. Beth and I we share an alma mater, which I think is absolutely wonderful when I read her bio. But the things that she talked about, look at how controlled she was. Very organized in her thoughts, very practical in the approaches that she took, taking her phone off and saying this could be your best friend or your worst nightmare. All of these are things that we've learned. The fact that we're talking to a group of individuals here, maybe other than some of our athletes, are not necessarily new students. Okay, you didn't just graduate from high school a year or two ago and then you're here. But you probably have had various careers. You've worked at various jobs. And the reason that you're here is because you're looking for an opportunity to gain some additional skill sets, some additional knowledge, for some place that you want to go, or something that you want to do. So you're to be congratulated, first of all, for doing that. You're right, you can either be 40 with a degree, or you can just be 40. You can be 65 with a degree, or 65. I mean, but the point is think about where you want to go, what you'd like to do. Listening to Stephanie made me think about how well she spoke, how well you present yourself verbally. People understanding you, having good diction, having a good grasp of a vocabulary are key. So think about that. And practice at home. You know, you think about all the things you do. I used to joke that I'm the oldest daughter, okay? 5 of us in the family. And my younger brothers and sisters, the first thing they would do if they wanted to do something, they'd come and find out, how did I do it? And my mother was always nervous because she says, be careful. Whatever you did, those kids are going to follow you. So my thing was to always make sure I practice. Whether it was, it could be a dance, it could be a speech, it could be a way that I dress, but I always practiced first and assessed it on my own. No one's in the room but me. Okay? How do I look? How do I sound? All of those things, and then I would let my brothers and sisters see it, or go out and let other friends assess whether I was dressed appropriately, how did my hair look. But do those things. You practice at home and in the privacy of perhaps your own room, so that when you do go out and meet that employer for the first time, what he or she gets to see is someone that they say, I really would like to have that individual in my organization. These are real practical tips. So L.A. mentioned pulling those pants up. That is so important. If it's something that you do on the weekend, knock yourself out. I mean, you can wear them as low as you want on the weekend. But on Monday through Friday, or whatever the days of employment that you have before you, you really do need to think about the organization that you're working in, the work to be accomplished, and you don't want people distracted or questioning whether you have the skill sets to do the job because they're distracted by whether your pants are, at your waist or hanging below your hips. Okay? So these are just simple things that you need to really want to think about as you move into your careers and as you even change careers. I stood up and didn't tell you what I do, but I've got to tell you this because it's always one of the best things that I get to talk about nowadays. My husband's family has owned the Christian Benevolent Funeral Home in Mobile for 85 years. I am the end-of-life planner for the Christian Benevolent Funeral Home. So not only am I talking to you about getting your career started, I can help you when you're ready to. And I've had a great time doing that around Mobile, is talking to people about doing end-of-life planning. But that's another subject, Leida. You can invite me back for that one. I started a career, started off my education a little bit like Alvin. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do. It was like college was no question. It was the 13th grade. And this was the time that you did that. Your parents had you think, you get up in the morning, what is it that you do? Is you go to school. They go to work, you go to school. That's the job you had. And you took it very seriously, and you made sure that you did the best you could do. I went to college. I was in sociology. I took classes. I had so many courses that by the time I'd been there 4 years, it was like the counselor says, you've got to declare a major. And I'm like, okay, pick something. I enjoyed learning. And I'm telling you that to say that life is lifelong learning. And in the environment and the world that we live in nowadays, you really do need to do exactly what all of you are doing here. Find yourself in a classroom where there's an opportunity to learn what's going on in the world. Technology is changing everything about how we do our work. It's even changing who gets a chance to work nowadays. So think about those kinds of things. What is it that you want to do? The individuals here talked about, you heard some started off in administration, healthcare, planning. Stephanie, when you look at all of the things that she's done, and then she's actually developed that into, and she does great career coaching. So this is somebody that you probably want to make sure you get her card before you leave. But there's so many things that when you look at the world that we live in nowadays, what is it that it requires? And you really do need to make sure that you understand yourself enough to know what you're good at. Changing world, changing environment, the way we get our work done, who gets to work at all, maybe even the idea of, look at the turmoil that was created when the new CEO for Yahoo says, I don't want people staying at home working. She says, I want them in the office, all right? That's a big change. The workplace was going to that. We just heard about, healthcare going to a lot of outpatient. So people aren't going to do things in large structures all the time. But Yahoo, the new CEO, says, I really want you to come in. She's decided, I want to bring my team in. Let me understand and find out and assess the quality of the individuals that I have here. And then she'll know exactly how to move forward, whether she wants to go back to that model of having people being able to work independently at home, okay? Or whether for her, in order to accomplish the objectives that she has for her organization, that they need to be in-house, in a building where they're all working together. Teams. Teams is a big thing. I noticed walking in, I saw a sign that talked about Team USA. Working in teams and in groups. The idea that you share that information and knowledge with other individuals. You heard Bill Harkins talk about that. The idea of actually finding individuals that you can sit down with because you have a project that you need to accomplish. You don't know all the answers yourself. I have to use Stephanie again. Stephanie's the kind of person who's working on something and the phone rings. She'll tell you what she's doing. She asks you for your thoughts and opinions on it. You give it to her. She's fine. She's still, gathering that information. So researching, finding out what others think, these are things that you will all need to do. And you need to make it the idea of what's the toolkit that's going to look like, that's going to work for you. Only you will know. But when you hear the answer and find those individuals who can assist you, you'll be extremely excited about it and know that you are getting what you need. I'm one of those people who was in sociology. I did a little accounting. I did social work. I did administration in social work. I got an MBA. I did marketing. I did finance. And now today I'm an end-of-life plan. So that just tells you how good the world is and all the places you can go. I'm not going to take a lot of time because we want to hear from Ms. Harkins too. But I enjoyed being here, and the wonderful things that you've heard from everyone else are really things to take to heart. And I'll be glad to talk to any one of you separately at any time. Thank you so much.
But the best advice you've gotten tonight is from these great professionals right here who are telling you how life is out there. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. One of the things that I learned early on was respect. I'm going to respect somebody who knows a lot more than I do and who can guide me. I was born into a very poor Puerto Rican family. We were on welfare. I ran away from home at the age of 14. Never graduated from high school. And I stand before you with a master's degree in public administration. You have to have it within you. I can put it in your face. I can make you read that book. But if you don't have it within you and you don't want to do it, guess what? It ain't going to happen. It's got to come from within. You listen to the folks above you. Oh, Mom, you don't know nothing, especially when you're a teenager. Mom, yeah, right, whatever. But Joe calls you and says, hey, man, let me tell you. Oh, yeah. Mom, well, Joe said it was like this. What does Joe know? He's 17, 18 years old like you are. He doesn't know jack. He might know jack, but he doesn't know jack. You know what I'm saying? What you need to do is appreciate the professional people that come into your life. You don't have to bow down to them. Just appreciate them and respect their knowledge. Through knowledge, they've made it. You want to make it. Look at them. Appreciate them. Know that they've hit hard times. Or maybe not. Maybe they didn't hit such hard times. You know what I'm saying? Mine was a hard time life, but I had a goal set for me. From my God above and the faith that I had in myself, and that's what you have to do. You've got to go into the world knowing that you are your own person. Don't let a friend tell you what your thoughts are going to be. You think for yourself, you do for yourself, you appreciate the person you are. Because until you respect yourself, nobody else is going to. If you throw yourself out there and you're hanging with the cronies just because you got buddies to hang with, guess what? You're going to become one of them. And that loser, friend of yours, is going to make you into a loser. And you're going to want to bring more losers into your world. Don't do that. You are your best and your worst enemy. But it comes from you. It comes from within. And have faith in you. Have faith in God or whatever other spiritual being you want to praise. Just have faith that whatever you want to do in life, you can accomplish it. And this comes from a very poor Puerto Rican girl growing up in Boston. Ran away from at 14. People aren't nice to kids in the street. They're rather mean. And you live and you survive how you want to. And I knew, first of all, that I was not going to continue the welfare cycle in my family. I knew that I would be the first one and the only one to graduate from college in my family. How did I do that? I went to work. I found a CETA program. I got training through the government. I did this all by myself. I started working at 14. I lied. I told the hospital I was 16. I can wash dishes. Just load them up in a machine. Turn the button. You know? But I did it because I wanted to. I wanted to break that welfare cycle, and I did. I remember what it's like standing in the cheese line, waiting for those powdered eggs and those darn good crackers.
Cheese was good.
You know? I remember that, and I knew that I didn't want that. I didn't want that for my family when I grew up. Because my role as a young Hispanic was to get married early and bear children and bring them into that cycle. I took myself out of the ghetto. You're here in education. Continue your education. That's all you got. Statistics show that minorities are filling up or have filled up the prisons big time. Not me. Not this kid. And there was enough out there to make me go that route. I was hanging around the wrong people where I could have gone that route. And I said, I'm not doing that. You don't have to do it. Listen to the voice within you. Don't listen to your buddy. Okay? Just because he's hip and cool and everybody likes him. Who cares? Football team? Oh, yeah. Baseball? Knock it out of the park. Red Sox 2004. World Series. Okay? I grew up in Boston. That's a big thing. Yeah, the girls think you're cute and they all want to date you. But guess what? Get an injury, get off that team. You're just going to be another schmuck like the rest of the other ones in school. And you know, it's true. So make the best you can of yourself. As long as you have faith in you and what you do and who you are, it don't matter what anybody else says. And if somebody tells you or tries to give you your opinion about somebody else, oh, I don't like her because she's wearing a purple shirt. Looks great, isn't it? Well, I tell Susie, don't like her. She's wearing a purple shirt. Oh, yeah, look at her. She's so disgusting. I can't stand her. Why? Because she's wearing a purple shirt? No, because she said you didn't like her. Who cares what I think about her? Make up your own mind about that individual. Sorry, I'm not picking on. About that individual yourself. Have that relationship. Develop that relationship between you and that person. Don't make an automatic opinion based on somebody else's. Okay? Be your own person. Got it? More Zumba tonight? No?
Yeah.
All right, thank you to the panelists. We have some time for questions.
What do you think are the most important work skills for a professional today?
Important work skill for a professional today. I'm kind of old school. I think it's still about
Network?
reliability. I mean, workplace is about familiarity and certainty. Markets are about certainty. If you look at the stock market, whenever there's tumult or issues in the world, the market responds. That's corporate America. So I think reliability, integrity, want to, and initiative.
Oh, wow, that's a good one. Good enough and great. That's reminding me. Thank you. Wow, good enough and great. I mean, I think great is absolutely, when I look at a great individual, I look at some of those characteristics that have already been mentioned. That's a self-starter. It's someone with good follow-through and follow-up. It's someone that can communicate and share their ideas effectively. That's a great individual to me. Somebody, again, who has a fire and a wanting. Something we haven't shared much about here is being teachable. That's something that came to me a lot later in life, and I look at that now a lot earlier in my employees. Be teachable. Be open to listen. Be open to change. Be open to correction. I mean, I work with degreed people, and sometimes they get stuck in what they think. So that to me is the difference between good and great. a lot of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Part of all the speakers, everyone spoke of that driving force that got you where you're at now. What is that driving force that continues to get you where you're going?
Groceries.
I think it's more than that, though. I think for all of us, it's become, I think all of us have struggled, except you. She let us know you didn't.
You're out.
That's right, forget you. But the rest of us, I mean, I think it's just beyond that. I don't, it's an internal, just I gotta do it, and I wanna do it right. I know
It
at my
becomes a
age,
habit.
it's more like what can
It
you do?
becomes a way of life. Let's do it better and better. They're going to be reading COVID starting
Oh.
this week. So we're going to do COVID the rest of up to now. They're talking about what they have done up to now and now what they can do in the future when they are reading COVID.
Insight and information too. I mean, as you continue to strive, you start to recognize that, and that's what I was trying to get across when I shared, some of my stumbles, is that goals are attainable. Nothing that we've talked about is unattainable. And as you continue to move forward and you engage people and you make informed decisions, you begin to realize that you too can do whatever you want to do, giving yourself the chance first of all. But you have to have that initiative to do that drive. But there's no secret sauce or
LA's checklist.
Oh, yeah.
Done. Yes.
This is for all the panelists. I personally have two questions that may or may not relate to everybody else. I consider them job killers, but I just wanted to get y'all's opinions. In y'all's environments and careers, opinions on tattoos, for one, visible tattoos. That is traditionally a job killer. That's what I've been told. And I was just curious about y'all's opinion from y'all's different fields.
I will say that it depends, working in a lot of different areas of the country, depending on where you are, is going to make whether it's okay or not.
It's more or less acceptable.
And tattoos are a very strange thing. Like the generation just before me, World War II, those types of things, that was a big deal. The servicemen got the tattoos. And then we went through a period of time where no one had tattoos, and now it's coming back, and so you're being hired by my generation that went through the no tattoo time. So it's is it a deal breaker? It depends on the company, the culture.
The location.
Yes, yeah, the location. But I mean, depending on, in a bank, they're not going to really want a tattoo on the side of your head, or a swastika in the, it just depends on the situation. Retail, it's probably okay.
We have an image we have to present.
Exactly.
So even though I might not be offended by it, I consult with HR managers in healthcare, who are locally based, and if it offends other people, we have to be very.
I just say that that's one of the fastest growing businesses as entrepreneurs are tattoo removal companies. So if you're looking for that business that you think you want to get in and make that $1 million right away, it is tattoo removal because as you age, you find that it doesn't quite fit not only your lifestyle and what you're doing. So it was only in a period of your life that it was great to have that tattoo. Didn't necessarily affect the industry you were in. But then you see them more often. But then as you start to get older, you really don't want that to define you and to suggest certain things about who you are as an individual, and you look for opportunities to get rid of it. So just keep that in mind.
You had a second question?
Yes, ma'am. Another one, another job killer. On when y'all look into background checks, how does that affect y'all's hiring process?
Since I do that a lot, we look at each conviction on a case-by-case basis. For instance, if someone has a theft conviction, we're not going to put them where they have access to patients' rooms. That's for their benefit and for yours. So I'm going to speak broadly and say on a case-by-case basis, you may not have a problem at all, especially since it was acquitted. It just depends on the job you're applying for and the company you're applying with. So it's not a deal breaker. It's just the culture, the situation.
That's an excellent response too. First of all, your willingness to share that with this group, I want to applaud you for that. But it is the kind of thing where if you're applying for a job that requires that you're licensed by the state, it could be something that could be a deal breaker. And the example that I'm thinking about, in order for me to be the end-of-life planner, I have a license in insurance because that's really what I sell. it's not as mysterious. It's not the Addams Family, but you know, that's what I do. So, but in order to do that, you do have to have the check that they actually do for whether you're able to get a license or not. It could affect that.
Yeah, we've seen it like in nursing students. I know one that had a conviction for DUI, and the State Board of Nursing would not issue a license when she graduated and actually made her go into a program
Yes.
for drug treatment and whatnot because she had the conviction for DUI before they would issue the license. So you see some of that. So some of the things that you do in life right now will affect you in your job.
That's right.
Something I'd say about both of those is when you put that application in, be honest on the application. If they're not asking about it, I wouldn't like put a little asterisk, hey, I've got this additional thing. But if it comes up, you've got to be honest. Okay? I think the way you presented that is exactly correct. Because some jobs it may have an impact, other jobs it doesn't. But what you don't want is to get hired on and then find out something that they've asked you ahead of time that you lied about. You're going to be toast then. So you just got to be honest.
I had it in my power tonight, I would just go ahead and grant all of the students here their degrees because you heard tonight what it takes to be successful. And if you do what you heard tonight, there is nothing you can't do. And I want to express my sincere appreciation to the panel for taking time out to be here tonight. I mean, the power and the passion and the expertise is just unparalleled. And thank you so much on behalf of you. And I want the students to know that Dr. Javier-Ferrell went to this effort, and our panel are here because of their deep faith in you and your ability to do whatever you want to do, regardless of your circumstances. One of the common things I heard tonight is that, number one, nobody ended up where they initially planned on doing. Everybody had long and winding roads to where they are today. And my guess is most members of the panel may have never predicted that at some point they would be asked to be a member of a panel and imparting their wisdom to a group of students. And yet here they are. And I know, I want y'all to know that Dr. Javier-Ferrell, Dr. Finley Hervey, and every member on this panel has the same belief in you. And that we have no doubt that at some point you will be asked to be either standing here in a few years or somewhere else in a panel and imparting your wisdom. And speaking on behalf of Dean Von Milner and the rest of our faculty here, we are honored to have you as students, and we are so invested in your future and so proud to have a role in helping you reach that. And I just want to give our students a hand with this.
Intellectually fed tonight. I had an intellectual 9-course meal on how to become successful. I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here to enlighten us, to tell us how to become successful. You know, we know you could have been doing something else, been on your yacht fishing, you know, doing whatever. But you took the time out to be with us, and that means a lot to the students here and my classmates. And on behalf of the University of South Alabama and the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies Department and my professor, Dr. Javier-Ferrell, who is a piece of work sometimes. Sometimes. You know, we just want to thank you, man, for being here. And we love her. We joke and joke. Hey, it's all about business and everybody trying to help somebody get from point A to point B. Yes. And seeing that this department, I never had another department that took care and showed me love that interdisciplinary department have. And so, I don't know where the food is. We just want to say thank you, man, and hey, thank you. And come again.
Thank you.